imagine a world that's ruled by Facebooks and Amazons, and the Bezos and Musks of this world are not just wealthy trillionaires; they are worshipped as living gods. They are their intention becomes the living will of every last individual on this planet, and that's manifested not through force, but through narrative, through storytelling. Every individual on this planet tethers to, physically connects to Maya trees. Maya trees are ubiquitous to this planet. They are everywhere. There are hundreds of millions of Maya trees on this planet. And every individual on this planet physically connects to a tendril of Maya tree pretty much every day, a couple of hours every day, a couple of minutes every day, but more or less every day. And when they do that, they do it for some function. They do it for work. They do it to meet each other across distances and time. They do it to revive some memories. They do it to play games and stimulate themselves, entertain themselves. So, but Maya is inducing all these stories and all these memories in them, and also collecting their memories. So when they gaze into Maya, Maya gazes right back into them. And then the Divya, who have an overview of all the stories and anxieties and warnings and aspirations that and imaginations that Maya has collected, use this big data to predict futures with a very high degree of likelihood, very, very high degree of accuracy. And then choose futures that they think um, are are more um, uh, favorable, not just to themselves. They think they're benevolent about it, so they choose futures that are going to be good for everyone. Now, this is the planet, uh, and the individuals who are connecting to these trees are not human beings. They are the whole of all of the stories happening on a planet called Ne, and the individuals and the various groups who are connecting to these trees are Garudas and Nags and Vanars, and they are all kinds of these glorious, wonderful species that have evolved on this planet, that have grown and raised on this planet for millions of years. And and we've written out the dynamics and the histories of these species, their cultures, their lores, their beliefs, their behaviors, how they their prejudices, their challenges, their aspirations, and use them to kind of give a map of the world today. And in this world has risen a young man who has been raised off grid, who has been raised by his grandfather to never tell Maya. He's invisible to the data gods of this planet, and hence he becomes the seed of chaos. That's really the first story, which is the blueprint for the film I'm making, which is the backdrop for the board game that we are coming out with. The backdrop of the board game is also shared with the graphic novels. It's designed in a way that the tertiary villain of the film is the hero of the animation series, and so on and so forth.
The main conflict in Maya is there's one hegemony that controls all the stories of the world. They change beliefs, they change truth because they control the delivery mechanism. So we went to the best architecture school in India, CEPT. So now students spend an entire semester at CEPT understanding the world of Maya and building architecture in the world of Maya. They build spaces for Garuds, spaces for Nags, houses for Vanars, courtrooms, prisons, everything inside the world of Maya, discarding everything they knew about architecture as we know it. We have very good demographic dividends in India. And it's very important that India or South Asia on the whole gets to exercise this demographic dividend. What usually happens in burgeoning economy is that we take the first job that we get, and it's not the best job, and you end up becoming service providers to the world at large. So you don't own the infrastructure to actually manufacture. You don't own the legal and cultural frameworks to actually build the IP. You become the middleman, the service, the trader. And while that helps a lot of people get out of poverty, it does not create long-term wealth. It does not create long-term, it doesn't create a negotiation space on the table that 2 billion people deserve. So we don't want to be the service backend of culture the same way we become service backend of IT. We want to become the IP owners. We want to become the thought leaders. We want to tell our stories to the world at large and not be colonized for the third time in a row. So it's very important that we become an IP powerhouse that quote unquote exports intellectual property to the world, while holding the reins of how it's being steered, as opposed to just becoming the back end that provides services for someone else's dream. We need to be the dreamers. We need to be the thinkers. We need to be the shepherds of the next 100 years. And I'm not saying we deserve the center stage and everything, but we deserve our due, which is one fourth of the world's population should have one fourth of the culture of the world's cultural capital, and that is non-negotiable.
So the influences, of course, are Mahabharata, Ramayana, like I said, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Samkhya, Mimamsa, Vedanta. Um, the influences are Isaac Asimov, Darwin, Dawkins. The influences are Steven Pinker, Yanis Varoufakis on the side of political philosophy and his insights on techno-feudalism, for example. Noam Chomsky of how the early meditations on how consent is manufactured in the world, etc. People who have worked in like incredible thinkers in evolutionary biology, Lynn Margulis, for example. Just I mean, I can go on and on. Kabir, obviously, there are endless influences, long list of influences that have Ursula K. Le Guin, um, Frank Herbert, of course. They're just like so many influences that have inspired us, informed our worldviews, and shaped our way of looking at the self and the world. That have obviously made their way into our mythology.